Hi guys, this is Jim from Dr. Tankenstein with a quick homebrew how-to. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to make a yeast vitality starter by doing basically nothing at all. All you're going to need is a little bit of wort, your yeast of choice, and a big old jar. So, let's get to it. Now the point of a yeast vitality starter is to kind of get your yeast ready for the big game, so to speak. It kind of helps to protect your yeast from that kind of harsh environment that is a big batch of wort. Now it will make the yeast slightly more active, so you might see a slightly earlier start to your fermentation. But more than that, it protects the yeast against cell death. It kind of just preps your yeast, gets a few more yeast cells going, and means you lose fewer yeast as you start your fermentation. What do we do to make this thing? Right, so I've been doughed in for about an hour now. So what I've done is I've just taken a small sample of wort, about 300 mils is fine, and I microwaved it. The microwave just kind of mimics a boil, just to kind of get all those hot break proteins that you can kind of see coagulate in there. Get them to drop out a little bit. So I've microwaved it. What I'm going to do is transfer this into a container with a loose fitting lid. I got this one from a fancy Swedish furniture shop, but you can use a jar, you can use a mug, you can use whatever you want as long as the lid fits loosely. Like I say, the yeast aren't going to be super active in this, so it's unlikely that it's going to explode, but just to be on the safe side, maybe don't screw the thing down all the way. Okay, so I'm gonna transfer my wort. Into all those hot break proteins that I was just talking about, it doesn't really matter if you transfer those over. This is just a starter, this is just to get us going. The beer, the whole fermentation process comes afterwards. Now this wort that I've made the gravity of this is in the upper 60s, maybe the low 70s. You know, I'm making sort of a double IPA. If I dunk my yeast into that right now, A, it's a little bit hot, but B, it's super, super concentrated. The yeast aren't gonna really know what to do. Unfortunately, I'm gonna lose some of them just because of the harsh environment. So what I'm gonna do instead is to dilute it about 50%, just using cold water. Tap water's fine. People may tell you to use distilled water. That's up to you. I'm gonna replace my lid, like I say, nice and gently. So that's now still just a little bit warm. I need to cool that down just a little bit. Now with regards to temperature on this one, obviously if we were making a beer, we would want to get the beer as cold as possible, pitch into cooled wort, and then let the temperature naturally rise. With your yeast starter, you really don't need to worry about this. The reason you would want a cold fermentation is to stop any kind of off flavors developing as the yeast grow. In this, all we want is for the yeast to grow. So you don't need to worry about off flavors or anything like that. By the time your beer is finished fermenting, all those off flavors will be taken care of. Either they'll blow off with the carbon dioxide, or the yeast themselves will digest them. So like I say, this is just a little bit warm still. So what I'm going to do to cool this down is to just run the whole thing under a cold tap and just gently shake it. So there we have it, my small amount of diluted wort, the gravity is now resting at about 1035 thereabouts, is now cool enough to pitch my yeast into. I'm not going to add any yeast nutrients, I'm not going to add any sugar. Everything that the yeast need is coming from my all malt mash here. So once I dunk my yeast in, I'm basically done. There we have it. So I'm just gonna give this a quick shake. Release the pressure. Yeah, and then just another little shake there. So I'm now gonna put that aside and carry on brewing as normal. You'll be amazed to see how active the yeast end up by the time I've finished brewing. So here we are, about an hour and a half after I initially made my yeast vitality starter. It started to sediment a little bit here, so before I throw this yeast into my cooled beer, I'm just gonna give it a good shake up. Just make sure I get absolutely everything in there. Don't worry about trub, don't worry about, you know, if there have been any yeast deaths, don't worry about throwing those in. This is just a real good way to start your fermentation the right way, eliminate some of those off flavors, and get as many yeast into that beer as you can. So guys, let me know how you got on with this. Follow me on Twitter at Dr. Tankenstein, subscribe to the channel, and comment below. Let me know how you get on. Cheers.